Bust it.
More than 60% of the Nigerian population is below 30 years. A lot of them haven't been to school and are claiming that Nigeria is an oil-producing country. Therefore, they should sit and do nothing, yet get free accommodation, free healthcare, and free education. The words of President Muhammad Buhari, while he was addressing the Commonwealth Business Forum in Westminster in London. What we took out from the statement his spokesperson Femi Adesina released. The president accusing majority of Nigerian youths of doing nothing and wanting everything free, free accommodation, free healthcare, and free education. And we ask, is the president not currently enjoying free accommodation? Is he not enjoying free healthcare, courtesy of the Nigerian government, even outside the shores of the country? And did he not benefit from free education? These are some questions the president must also answer. Some Nigerian youths have been replying. We have some aspects of it on our mail, but that's not our attention today. The focus of our attention on today's edition of Political Platform is the invasion of the Senate chambers in the National Assembly by some talks. Some newspapers said 5 talks deal with over 250 security men deployed to the complex, including policemen, DSS operatives, civil defense, name it. Over 250 of them, according to the newspaper, daily man different sections of the complex. Yet, these 5 talks made away with that mess, and the police say they have recovered it. In a statement early this morning, the police said it was abandoned under the bridge near the city gate in Abuja, and a good Samaritan tipped them off, and they have recovered the mace, the symbol of authority of the Senate, and no word on the attackers. The police has not told us whether any of them has been arrested. We saw their faces. The pictures taken showed clearly their faces. No one is talking about the arrest of the perpetrators of these acts and their prosecution. Reactions everywhere from the federal government, which directed the security agencies to investigate. That is where it stopped. Just investigate this matter. The PDP also reacted. The APC reacted. Almost everybody. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar reacted. But the Deputy Senate President, who was in charge yesterday in the absence of Senate President Bukola Saraki, held a meeting with the Vice President Osinbajo at the State House Abuja, where he briefed him on the development. The first time such an attack is taking place in the National Assembly since the return of democracy in 1999. We have 2 guests on the program, a lecturer and a lawyer, to give us their perspectives on this development. My name is Amechi Anokwe. My colleagues are here with me, Adeboye Bodori. Welcome to the program.
Amechi, no matter which way you look at it, what happened yesterday in the Senate was a national embarrassment. And it clearly shows the fact that we are not serious in defending this democracy. It just look around as if some people are out to truncate democracy in Nigeria. Because there's no way you could explain what happened. There's no way you can explain that security was not compromised. Because the gate where those invaders, if I will use that word, escape from, is this gate from the Villa side. And that gate, for the 5 years I cover the National Assembly, is usually reserved for the president when he's coming to address a joint session of the National Assembly. To open the gate for invaders, then the security was compromised. And this is not the first time it is happening in the National Assembly in course of this 4th Republic. In fact, there are several others when there has been different invasions in course of this.
But the dimension of this very one appear different.
The first one was the one carried out by a Senate president, the late Chuba Okadibo, on June 3rd, 2000, when there was leadership crisis in the Senate then, and he abruptly adjourned the Senate for 6 weeks. So The other camp, led by his deputy, the late Haruna, was seeking for the maize, but Okadibo came out and said he has removed the maize and took it to his home country,
Obunike Cave, and where a 7 feet python was said to be guiding
it. And if you look at all, it's not the only one too. You recall during this Patricia Ete period, there was a verbal confrontation on the floor of the House of Representatives, and it led to commotion, confusion, tearing of clothes, and all the rest. And at the end of it all, people who are not lawmakers invaded the place, and the House session then came to an abrupt end. And in course of a few days after, there was a similar confrontation in the House of Representatives, which was also invaded by non-lawmakers, and it led to the death of the then chairman of the House Committee on Health, Dr. Aminu Safana. So you look at all these trends and what has happened in course of this Fourth Republic, and you look at what has happened before. You look at what happened in the Western Regional House of Assembly, which many say is the beginning of the collapse of the First Republic. So one is worried about what actually happened yesterday, and I think the lawmakers themselves should rise up. They must seek to protect the maize. The maize is the symbol of authority, and the maize is not just, it's not only the National Assembly that lawmakers that are using the maize. In most courts, whether High Court, Senate, Supreme Court, or Court of Appeal, they also have maize. And because if you look at the origin of the maize, it was as at the time it started, there was no warrant of arrest for criminals in Britain. So the mace is what they use. Once they point the mace at you, it means you are under arrest. And so if it has evolved over the years, and many countries have copied, and no legislative session could hold without the mace, the National Assembly themselves must rise up and make sure that they can enact laws to seek for the recognition and respect for the mace.
I can understand how you feel. The hallowed chamber, they call it. Check the dictionary meaning of hallowed. It's not just an ordinary word. It's deep, highly respected, revered, dignified. It tells a lot. But we saw some suspected talks, made nonsense of all these adjectives, went to the heart of the sovereignty of the National Assembly and made away with it, unchallenged by nearly 250 security men deployed. I spoke to some sources within the National Assembly yesterday, and they told me it's not just all about an attack on the National Assembly, that it could be a grand plot to change the leadership of the National Assembly. That part of the plot was to make sure that the Senate did not sit yesterday, but the senators insisted that that action would not stop their sitting, that they must continue. And it confided in me that that was what thwarted their plan to come back later and institute some change of leadership. But these are all speculations. Uju Ejeye also has been covering the National Assembly for quite a number of years.
Amechi, what happened yesterday is something that is very, very terrible. I asked myself, those who went to prison, even underground prison, fighting for Nigeria to return to democratic rule, some of them like Polycarp Mwite, who never quite recovered their health. What about the one of them, who went insane while in an underground detention facility and has never recovered? That man has been mad since that time till today. What about people like B. Uduro Jaye, who were in underground prison for 2 years, all because they were fighting for democratic rule to be enthroned? Baba Desoya, Ganiu Daudu, Shoni Bare, all of them, Baba Laniu, a whole lot of them. Did they all suffer in vain? Because the kind of shenanigans, the kind of things that we're seeing today is quite, they are quite ridiculous. I was at the National Assembly. For a senator who is on suspension, should he even have access to the red chambers?
He said, based on legal advice, he decided to join his colleagues in proceedings.
Must he resort to self-help?
Exactly. He shouldn't resort to self.
But
we're talking about a hallowed chamber, a distinguished senator.
He claims he did not touch the mace, that he was not involved.
Amechi, I was there when he was coming in. When the sergeants at arm at the door tried to stop the boys who were following him. They didn't try to stop him, but they tried to stop the boys. He said, no, they are my boys. Let them in, let them in. And I began to wonder, since when the people wearing T-shirts begin to enter into the chambers, not the gallery?
I recall during the time of Okadibo, late Chuba Okadibo as Senate President, he had to walk out a distinguished senator out from the chambers.
Exactly.
Because according to him, he was not properly dressed. If you're coming into the chamber, you must be properly dressed in our official Nigerian attire, because the mace is there, the symbol of authority, and you can't continue to desecrate it.
Amechi, it's not even just the lawmakers. I recall also in the 6th Assembly, when Bankole was the speaker, he also walked out some lawmakers who were not properly dressed from the chamber. So that tells you that you can't even dress anyhow. And even as journalists and visitors to the National Assembly, if you're not properly dressed, you're not allowed by this same sergeant at arms that allowed these people in to enter. And so it has been a culture, it has been a tradition in the National Assembly. And what really pained me again with that is that some Ghanaian parliamentarians, some Ghanaian lawmakers were in the House of Representatives to understudy us, and they witnessed what happened. It's really painful, and the kind of pandemonium that erupted at the National Assembly. In fact, it was just the journalistic instinct in me that stopped me. People were running, they were saying, herdsmen, Fulani herdsmen have invaded the National Assembly. People were banding all sorts of things. There was pandemonium everywhere. Did we have to go through
what
that?
They experienced yesterday is not so different from what has been happening in other parliaments. We see how chairs are freely being used in Canada. Ottawa, the capital, the Parliament Hill, shooting a suspected terrorist stormed that place, and some of the sergeant at arms had to use their firearms to shoot him down more than 30 times. We'll see.
Did they remove the mace and went freely through all the security checks? One of the security men I talked to told me, he said, look, sister, the speed with which the car was coming was so much, I didn't want to risk my life. So why are they there? Security
Mustafa
officers?
Mohammed is also in the studio with us.
What is burning on my mind is the various reactions to President Muhammadu Buhari's statement on the Nigerian youth. Many observers, especially on the social media, have reacted by saying that the president has not, been very fair to the Nigerian youth. They said he cannot actually separate himself from the numerous Nigerian leaders over the years who could not plan for the future of the generations to come. Whatever the youth have become, if it's true, then he is one of those who will take responsibility. And of course, some of the Nigerian youth have been very active on the social media, also, talking about, reacting to what the president is saying, that is not the true position the president has, presented about the Nigerian youth. They said they have lawyers, engineers, medical doctors. You also have a lot of businessmen and artisans among themselves. So the kind of presentation, in fact, one of them even said that you find Nigerian youth distinguishing themselves all over the world. They mentioned even the name of Jalil, the designer of that car, award-winning car designer, some working at the Microsoft, some, coming with a lot of innovation. But as regards to what happened at the National Assembly yesterday, Amechi, so many people try to say or think that this is the first time that this kind of thing has happened. Just like you said, this kind of violence in the parliament are, the characteristics of various parliaments across the world. You see fights, you see sponsored attacks like this. But our expectation in a country like Nigeria, where we can say the nation is supposed to be matured, our politicians are supposed to be matured, we are not expecting this kind of, brigandage inside the National Assembly. If you want to even remove the Senate President and Deputy, there are, a matured way of doing this thing. That thing that happened yesterday was unfortunate. That thing that happened yesterday would have even led to the loss of life. Look at the way those vehicles were speeding up.
Well, the president, maybe the couching of his language was what made Nigerians to understand it differently. You can't take it away. It's a matter of fact that there are many Nigerian youths that are lazy. Some of those that snatched the mace, some of them could be youths. When the president talk about lazy youths, go to the streets, you see them. Go to Lagos, you see them. Go across the board, you see them. Yes, but to that uniform general categorization is the problem.
What has the government done for the youths of this country in the last 15 years?
Well, I know that this administration has instituted an Empower project where it has tried to empower Nigerian youths and give them temporary employment. These are some of the measures that the president has taken, and is working hard to ensure that the youths get their pride of place in the Nigerian politics.
Amechi, thank you very much. You talked about the Empower project. Can you just tell me the methodology they use?
You don't have to tell me to.
No, because do you know why? Do you know why? No, if you want to tow that path, I will ask you a question. What about youths that are not politicians, that are apolitical? Do they have access to this Empower? Because what happens in the local government areas, and they go to their political parties in their meetings, it happened during the PDP and it's happening now, to tell them this is what is happening. During the You Win program, you see people telling them go to the chairman's house and take a form, and it is happening now even when you're looking for a job. The problem we have is that the elders, the older ones, do not have confidence in the younger ones in this country. It happens in even private and public organizations,
let's
not in government.
Our viewers, let's gauge their views as we go into our email platform.
Welcome to the mail segment, and I am Etenika Akepu, and joining me is
Amaka Okoro. Welcome.
All right, we are going to get started with a mail from Abdullahi Shuaibu, who is reacting to the drama that played out on the floor of the Senate yesterday. He says it was a drama in National Assembly on Wednesday when groups of political thugs invaded the Senate complex during their plenary and took away their mace, which serves as a symbol of parliamentary authority. But this looks like a dream to me. How did these political thugs pass through the security apparatus in National Assembly to perpetrate this evil and went away safely? Was there any conspiracy? Should we call it negligence or incompetence on the side of the securities on duty? This is the height of insecurity in Nigeria. Common men have been facing herdsmen attacks and other security challenges in Nigeria for a long time now, without lasting solutions. Now is the turn of our political elite to test such an ugly situation. This is unfortunate, but is a wake-up call to all, especially those at the helm of affairs. Our security agencies must do everything humanly possible to protect individuals and institutions in Nigeria, because it seems we are heading the state of nature. May God bless Nigeria.
Nasukwo from Wusetu in Abuja writes on President Buhari's speech about the Nigerian youth at the Commonwealth and says, yesterday President Buhari branded Nigerian youths as lazy. I'm really sad about the comments of the president, knowing that the Nigerian youths are the most hardworking and industrious in the world, given the situation in the country today. When Mr. Buhari was young, he had free education, free Medicare, jobs waiting for him after graduation, etc. But today, our youths have to learn under the most dehumanizing conditions, despite having to pay, and still manage to make something out of themselves. May I remind Mr. President that the laziest set of youths in this country today are the children of the elites, while the rest of us have to toil and struggle to make ends meet. Mr. President does not care to invest our Commonwealth in industries, education, health, etc.
That's it on the mail segment. We'll bring you more of your mails tomorrow on the program.
Thank you so much. For the mails, one of our listeners also highlighting what we forgot to raise there, the complicity, alleged complicity of the Senate in this whole saga. It was on this program last week that we talked about a judgment of a federal high court that clearly stated that the National Assembly cannot indeed suspend any member, be it the Senate or the House of Representatives, for more than 2 weeks. It was a court judgment, and you know, like we always say on this program, even if a judgment or a ruling comes from a drunken judge or a judge who is certified crazy, we must first obey it, then appeal to discharge that judgment. The National Assembly, we heard, has appealed, but they still went ahead to suspend a member for as much as 80 or 90 legislative days. Our listener raised a vital issue. If you beat a child, would you not want him to cry? But so many people have talked about the fact that if Omar Agege is not satisfied with the action of the Senate, which for us here was illegal and a gross violation of a judgment of a court, there are ways of righting wrongs. You can't just use an illegality to right another illegality to indeed promote some anarchy in the polity. But let's bring in...
before you bring it, let me raise this point that the issue of going to the Court of Appeal may itself not be necessary. You will recall that a female legislator was suspended for 1 year in Bauchi State. She took up a legal action, went as far as Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal upheld the judgment of the lower court in Bauchi then and said the woman cannot be suspended, and she was recalled. So there is already a subsisting Court of Appeal judgment on suspension of lawmakers.
So like they say in my town, if you bring in a log of wood that is ant infested, then you likely get lizards as visitors. The National Assembly must also search their own soul. This will definitely become a learning curve for everybody. The powers of the National Assembly to unilaterally suspend members when the court has said it's only the electorate or the court itself that can carry out that action. Dr. Ekanem Asukwe Ekanem, a lecturer from University of Port Harcourt and also a journalist, is joining us now via telephone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Amechi.
Let's get your perspective on the development at the Senate yesterday.
What really happened at the Senate yesterday was a shame on democracy. As you are aware, the security architecture of the Senate National Assembly is so much that you cannot expect talks to put it to inner chamber of the National Assembly, and at the same time do away with the rest of the symbol of the National Assembly. It is a shame on democracy. So we condemn the act in totality. So we want to seriously take up a serious committee to look at the issues involved, and those who are responsible should be reprimanded and called to order. It's a shame on our democracy. That's my thinking.
So many people believe that many security men deployed to that part of the that complex should have nipped this problem in the bud. What do you have to talk about the security architecture of the National Assembly?
At least somebody who has not been to the National Assembly for the first time should be able to, before you get access to the National Assembly, you have to pass not less than three security checkpoints. For you to have access to the National Assembly, and you pass the first security point, you pass the second security point, and the third, nothing was done. Because that our security network is so porous in a way that anybody can get in there and get out without any molestation. Okay. I've been to the National Assembly for more than once, so I know how the security network is tight. But for you to see a talks getting to the inner chamber of the National Assembly and going to the Senate chamber and do away with the mask of the symbol of the authority of the National Assembly is a shame on democracy. Okay. And the legislature should be able to find out the immediate and remote causes of why this should happen at the National Assembly.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Ekanem Asukwe Ekanem of the University of Port Harcourt.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, let's bring in another of our guests, a lawyer this time around. He is a former president of Aka Ikenga. Aka Ikenga is a socio-cultural organization in the Southeast. Hello. Thank you so much, Bryce Owazurike, for joining us. Now, let's start with the suspension of Omar Agege from the Senate.
Like by many people, including me, and I will always call it a sacrilege, on the hallowed chambers of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Democracy is anchored on a tripod: the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, and each one of them is independent of the other, with the National Assembly having oversight functions. Unfortunately, the instrument of cohesion, instrument of enforcement, and instrument of defense resides only in the executive. So as it is today, for the judiciary to have its decisions carried out, they need the executive. For the legislature to do the same thing, they need the executive. And this is where the lacuna lies.
Okay, but Barrister Owazurike.
The anarchists That's what I prefer to call them.
Okay, but let's look at it from another perspective. Let's look at it from another perspective.
They can do anything and get it wrong. They did that with the judiciary. Remember, they did.
Let's look at it from another perspective. Now, the senator in question, Omar Agege, claims that his suspension by the National Assembly, by the Senate, was illegal. Of course, we know what the court has said on the right of the National Assembly not to suspend for more than 2 weeks. Did the Senate not invite this problem onto itself with that alleged illegal action of his illegal action?
Omar Agege, let me emphasize his name. Omar Agege is completely wrong. The National Assembly had to make rules for its proceedings. Where you do not agree with what they have done, you have one option: go to court. He has gone to court. Even though this thing is in court, he bullied his way on the floor. So nobody will stay outside and tell the National Assembly, you cannot do this. You can only examine what they have done. And the court has not examined it. It is like when I slap somebody, he goes out and starts beating me because he is my son, and says, why did you slap me? So you beat me. It is like when a principal suspends a student and the student resorts to self-help and starts beating the principal. Oh my God, you are wrong. Wrong as in wrong can be any day. I have heard of the cases cited. I've had the views of some of my
let's look at this issue because
without any fear of contradiction.
Let's look at this issue.
You are wrong.
Let's look at this issue from the protection and the respect for the maize. Since the emergence of the maize from medieval time up to now, you see the maize in courts, you see it in parliament. What do we need to do to ensure respect for respect for the maize as a symbol of authority?
I can give you a straightforward answer. The National Assembly should, as a matter of urgency, constitute a protective arm, not just the ceremonial sergeant at arms. I mean a well-equipped enforcement and protective unit. They have the powers to make the law, and they can easily turn it into law if the president vetoes it. If the executive arm can no longer protect them, then they should protect themselves. The executive can never make law. It is the legislature. Whether anybody likes it or not, it is the legislature. Only the judiciary can interpret the law and say you are wrong or you are right. Until then, anything done by anybody is called self-help. At this moment, I hear all sorts of views of people shouting, Omar Agege was suspended. Why will he not be suspended? If you are a member of a house and the house discussed something, you said nothing. As soon as the house took a decision, you went outside and addressed the press.
So does it not enjoy the right of alternative opinion and dissent?
Omar Agege, I know first how to get into that Senate. He should make a good name for himself, not a name that is filled with anarchism.
Okay, we'll have to thank you so much, Chief Goddy Uwazurike, former President Akai King and a lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
The much we can take on today's edition of the program. When we return tomorrow, more reactions, more developments. The nation is appear to be more interesting this time. These are what you find in a democracy, is a learning curve, and these are the experiences that will help to solidify and enroot in our democracy in future. On behalf of my colleagues, my name is Amechi Anokwu. Have a wonderful day.
Busted.